Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. 7 weeks. That's how long we had until our wedding. Everything was already paid for. The venue was booked. The photographer had our schedule. Sophie's dress was hanging in the spare bedroom. My suit had already been fitted. If anyone had asked me that Friday morning, I would have told them I was about to marry the right woman. By Sunday night, I had canceled everything. It started with what Sophie called a girls' weekend. She and 3 friends rented a place by a lake about 3 hours away. They'd planned it months earlier as one last girls' getaway before we got married. "Don't work the whole weekend," she told me as she loaded her bag into her SUV. "I'll try." She smiled and kissed me. "I'll make it up to you when I get back. I'll hold you to that." She laughed, waved, and drove away. The weekend was quiet. I caught up on work, watched a football game with my brother, and met my father for breakfast Saturday morning. Sophie sent a few pictures with her friends sitting by the lake, holding drinks around a fire pit. Nothing looked unusual. She came home Sunday evening carrying leftover snacks and talking a mile a minute. "You would have loved the cabin," she said as she unpacked. "We barely slept." "You girls have fun?" "The best." She grinned. "We laughed so hard my stomach still hurts." She looked different. Not guilty, almost excited. That night we ordered pizza and watched a movie. She barely paid attention to it, smiling every time her phone buzzed. Around midnight, she said she was going upstairs to call her friend Melissa. I stayed downstairs cleaning the kitchen. As I walked past the staircase, I heard Sophie's voice through the cracked bedroom door. She was laughing, not nervous, not ashamed, laughing. "It was one stupid night," she said. "Relax. Trevor will never find out." Another burst of laughter. "It doesn't change anything. We're still getting married." I didn't think. I pushed the bedroom door open. Sophie spun around so fast she nearly dropped her phone. The smile disappeared from her face. "Find out what?" I asked. The room went completely silent. Melissa's voice was still coming through the speaker. "Sophie?" She ended the call without answering. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she looked at the floor. It happened Saturday night." "What happened?" She swallowed. "I slept with someone." I looked at her without saying a word. Hearing her admit it out loud removed any doubt. Then, unbelievably, she gave a nervous little laugh. "It was just one night, Trevor. It was stupid. It doesn't have to ruin everything." I stared at her. "You're laughing." I'm just uncomfortable." "No," I said calmly. "You're trying to convince yourself it wasn't a big deal." She reached for my arm. "Please don't make this bigger than it is." I stepped back before she could touch me. "I'm not making it bigger." I looked directly into her eyes. "You just canceled our wedding." Sophie followed me downstairs before I even reached the front door. "Trevor, please, just listen to me." I already did. It was one mistake. I grabbed my overnight bag from the hallway closet and tossed in a few clothes. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed tightly. "You're really leaving?" "I'm giving you exactly what you gave me." She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "A life without me." Her face tightened. "You're being dramatic." I zipped the bag shut and looked at her. "No, I'm being decisive." She shook her head. "You can't throw away everything we've built over one stupid night." I picked up my keys. "You threw it away. I'm just refusing to marry someone who thought it was worth the risk." She tried blocking the front door. "Can we at least talk tomorrow?" "I don't have anything else to say tonight." I walked around her and left. 20 minutes later, I knocked on my best friend Lucas Bennett's apartment door. He opened it, took one look at my face, and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" "Sophie's gone." He frowned. "You mean she left?" "No." I walked inside. I did. After I told him everything, he leaned back on the couch. "You know what bothers me most?" he asked. "The cheating?" "No." He pointed toward me. "The laughing." I nodded. "Exactly." Lucas sighed. "Don't waste the next week arguing with her. Find out exactly what happened first." I plan to. The next morning I started making calls. The florist, the photographer, the band, the venue. Most of the contracts still allowed partial refunds because the wedding was several weeks away. By lunchtime, thousands of dollars had already been recovered. Around noon, my phone lit up again. Sophie. I let it ring. A minute later, another call came. Then another. Finally, she left a voicemail. "Trevor, please answer. I'm begging you. We can fix this." I deleted it without listening again. That afternoon, I called the lakeside resort. Since several reservations had been paid through the wedding account we shared, they were willing to answer basic billing questions after verifying my information. One detail immediately caught my attention. An extra room key had been issued to Sophie's cabin just after 11 that Saturday night. Another charge appeared around 2 in the morning. Late-night room service for 2 people. Breakfast wasn't ordered until almost 11 the next day. That wasn't all. The receptionist casually mentioned another guest had been asking for directions to Sophie's cabin that evening. His name was Brandon Pierce. He had been staying with friends at the same resort. So much for a random mistake. As I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sophie. "Please don't let everyone find out like this. We can still save us." I stared at the message for a few seconds before locking my phone. If it had really been one meaningless mistake, why was every answer leading to another lie? The next morning, I drove back to the house while I knew Sophie would be at work. I wasn't there to see her. I wanted answers. Most of our wedding planning had been done on a laptop we both used. We never hid passwords from each other because, until a few days earlier, I never thought I needed to. I opened the browser. The first thing I checked was social media. It didn't take long. Brandon Pierce. His profile was public. I clicked on it. Then I switched to Sophie's account. She'd forgotten to log out on our laptop before leaving for the trip. She had started following Brandon the morning after the girls' weekend. That wasn't enough to prove anything. Their conversation was gone, but she hadn't deleted it from the archived messages. I opened it. The first one had been sent Monday afternoon. "I had a great time with you. I wish we had a little more time before I had to leave." Another message came a few hours later. "Maybe we could meet halfway sometime." Then another. "I know this is crazy, but I can't stop thinking about Saturday." I kept scrolling. Finally, Brandon replied. His message was short. "You told me you were single. I found your engagement photos online. Don't contact me again." I leaned back in the chair. For the first time since Sunday night, I actually smiled. Not because I was happy, because everything suddenly made sense. Sophie hadn't come home feeling guilty. She had come home excited. She wasn't laughing because she'd survived cheating. She was laughing because she thought she'd gotten away with it. And only after Brandon turned her down did she suddenly want to save our relationship. My phone rang. Sophie. This time I answered. She sounded relieved. "Thank God. What do you want?" "I just want to explain." "You already did." "No, Trevor, please. It wasn't about him." I looked at Brandon's messages on the screen. "That's interesting. What does that mean?" "It means you're still lying." Silence. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You will." Another long pause. Finally, she spoke again. "Can we meet tonight?" "No." "When?" "There isn't going to be a when." Her voice cracked. "I love you," I answered without raising my voice. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have been asking another man to see you again 2 days after sleeping with him." She stopped breathing for a second. I hadn't told her what I found. Now she knew. "Trevor." I ended the call. An hour later, another voicemail came through. She was crying. She said she only wanted closure with Brandon. She said she realized she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. I listened to the message once. Then I deleted it. By then, I wasn't interested in explanations. I was interested in finishing what she had started. By Wednesday morning, every major wedding vendor had been canceled. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist, even the honeymoon. Some deposits were non-refundable, but I recovered far more money than I expected. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about closing every door that led back to Sophie. There was only one thing left to do. Tell our families. I invited both sets of parents to meet at the wedding venue that Saturday afternoon. I didn't explain why. I only said it was important. When I arrived, Lucas was already there. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I've never been more sure." One by one, everyone showed up. My parents, Sophie's parents, her older sister Emily, my younger brother Scott. Sophie walked in last. The moment she saw everyone gathered, her face lost its color. She hurried toward me. "Trevor, what's going on?" I didn't answer. Once everyone was seated, I stood at the front of the room. "I asked you all to come because there won't be a wedding." The room went silent. Sophie's mother looked confused. "What do you mean?" I took a slow breath. Sophie admitted she slept with another man during her girls' weekend. Her father turned toward her. "Sophie," she immediately stepped forward. "It was one mistake." "No," I said. "It was a choice." She looked at me. Please don't do this. I'm not doing anything. I'm telling the truth. She wiped her eyes. It didn't mean anything. I reached into the folder I'd brought. I know. Everyone watched as I placed a few printed screenshots on the table. Not dozens, just enough. The first showed Sophie asking Brandon if they could meet again. The second was Brandon's reply telling her never to contact him because she'd lied about being engaged. Nobody spoke. Sophie's father slowly picked up one of the pages. His shoulders dropped. You told him you were single? Sophie covered her face. I'm sorry. Her mother began crying quietly. Emily stared at her sister without saying a word. Lucas stood beside me but never interrupted. Finally, Sophie's father walked over to me. I'm sorry, Trevor. You don't owe me an apology. He nodded once. I know. Across the room, Sophie took a step toward me. I know I don't deserve another chance. You're right. But is there anything I can say? I looked at her for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. If there was, you would have said it before you laughed about cheating on me. She lowered her head. There wasn't another word left to say. The wedding was over. Before it ever began. 3 days passed before Sophie stopped calling every hour. Instead, she sent one message. Please meet me once. If it's really over, let me hear you say it face to face. I thought about it for a minute. Not because I was changing my mind, because I preferred endings without unfinished business. I told her to meet me at a quiet coffee shop the following afternoon. She was already sitting there when I arrived. She looked exhausted. The confidence she'd carried after that girl's weekend was gone. Dark circles sat under her eyes, and she barely touched the coffee in front of her. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I sat across from her. You've got 10 minutes. She nodded. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. Correct. I hate what I did. I didn't answer. I wish I could take it back. You can't. Tears filled her eyes. I've replayed that night 100 times. I haven't. She looked confused. I don't need to replay it. I already know everything I need to know. She looked down at the table. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. It was the alcohol. No. She looked back up. It was your decision. She started crying. I was scared before the wedding. Everything felt real. I made the worst choice of my life. I leaned forward. Can I ask you one question? She nodded immediately. Anything. Why were you laughing? She blinked. What? When I heard you talking to Melissa. Why were you laughing? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I don't know. Try. She rubbed her forehead. I think... Another long pause. I think I was trying to convince myself it wasn't serious. I shook my head. No, she frowned. I believe you laughed because you thought I'd never know. She couldn't argue. Neither of us said anything. Finally, she slowly slid her engagement ring off her finger and placed it on the table. I guess this belongs to you. I looked at it for a few seconds. The diamond caught the afternoon sunlight through the window. A month earlier, it had represented the future I wanted. Now, it was just jewelry. I pushed it back toward her. Sell it. She looked surprised. What? I don't want it. But you paid for it. I don't care. She stared at the ring. I can't keep it. That's your decision. I stood up. She quickly wiped her eyes. So, this is really goodbye? I looked at her one last time. You didn't lose me when I walked out of the house. She frowned. You lost me the moment you decided I wasn't worth being faithful to. I turned and walked toward the door. My phone rang before I even reached my truck. The number was unfamiliar. I answered. This is Trevor. A man's voice came through the speaker. My name is Brandon Pierce. I think we need to talk. His voice was calm, almost hesitant. I sat in my truck for a moment without saying anything. I know who you are, I figured. Another second of silence passed. I've been trying to decide whether I should call you. You've got my attention. I found out everything a few days ago. I didn't say anything. Brandon continued. I had no idea Sophie was engaged. I let him finish. When we met that weekend, she told me she was single. She even said she'd gotten out of a serious relationship months earlier. I believed her. If I'd known the truth, I would have walked away. I know. He sounded surprised. You do? I saw your messages. He let out a slow breath. Then you know I ended it as soon as I found out. I do. I still wanted to tell you myself. You don't owe me an apology. Maybe not, he said, but I figured you deserved to hear it from me. There was no arrogance in his voice. No excuses. Just honesty. I had already seen enough to know he was telling the truth. Hearing it from him only confirmed what I'd already learned. "You did the right thing," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "Good luck, Trevor." "Thanks." After we hung up, I sat quietly for a minute before deleting every photo, every voicemail, and every piece of evidence I'd been holding on to. I didn't need any of it anymore. The truth was complete. The proof had served its purpose. Holding on to it wouldn't change anything. For the first time since that Sunday night, I felt like I could finally leave the past where it belonged. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like it had before. The wedding date came and went without me thinking much about it. Instead of standing at an altar, I spent that Saturday helping my father replace the deck behind his house. We worked all afternoon, ordered barbecue, and watched a baseball game that evening. It was a better day than the one I'd originally planned. The house Sophie and I had intended to buy went to another couple. I didn't care. A different opportunity came along a few months later, and I bought a smaller place closer to my office. It felt like a fresh start. I wasn't interested in jumping into another relationship. I spent a few months focusing on work, my family, and getting my life back on track. Eventually, I agreed to a date with someone a friend introduced me to. We took things slowly. There were no big promises, no rushing, just honesty. Over time, one date turned into another. Before I realized it, I was looking forward to the future again. As for Sophie, I only heard things through mutual friends. She moved into a small apartment after leaving the house we'd shared. Most people eventually learned why the wedding had been canceled. No one needed to hear my side twice. The facts spoke for themselves. A few friends stayed close to her. Most quietly drifted away. Not because she'd cheated, because she'd lied to everyone afterward, hoping she could still blame the breakup on cold feet and wedding stress. I also heard she'd started dating again. None of the relationships lasted very long, whether that was because she hadn't changed or because people eventually saw the same things I did. I couldn't say. It wasn't my concern anymore. One evening I was sitting on my back porch with a glass of iced tea when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophie, the first one in months. I still think about what we could have been. I stared at it for a moment. Then I deleted it without replying. There wasn't anything left to say. Some people told me I should have forgiven her. Others said everyone deserves a second chance. Maybe they're right. But marriage isn't built on second chances. It's built on trust. And trust isn't something you negotiate after it's broken. Looking back, people assume the affair was the moment our relationship ended. It wasn't. Relationships can survive terrible mistakes if both people truly want to repair them. What ours couldn't survive was the moment I heard Sophie laughing. She called it a harmless one-night stand. She believed I'd never find out. That laugh told me more than the affair ever could. It told me exactly who she was. Canceling the wedding wasn't the hardest decision I ever made. It was the easiest, because I wasn't walking away from my future. I was protecting it. Thank you for watching.